So I'm going to share a story with you tonight that I haven't shared with many people. Could be not anyone. I probably must have told my wife sometime, and maybe my two youngest daughters, who at least finally some of my children have some curiosity about who I am. So sometimes when I put them to bed, they ask me to tell them stories from, way back when I was a little younger. So maybe I told them this one, but I'm not sure if I did. But I'm going to share it with you because it meant a lot to me, and it has to do with the time of my life when after I graduated college. So I did sort of a different, in many ways in my life, and still sort of different order than a lot of people in the way I did things. So I went to college first, and I became Torah observant in college. And after college, I went to yeshiva. And my first 3 years of yeshiva full time were in Israel, in Jerusalem. And I was in a yeshiva called Beis Yisrael, which is in Beit Vegan, a suburb of Jerusalem in the south. And now the yeshiva has moved to the north of Jerusalem, of Yerushalayim, to Neve Yaakov. But my yeshiva was about a 30-minute walk from around the central bus station, or just past the Mattersdorf. And I made a connection, somebody who I didn't really know them, but it was someone I really wanted to know, and I was able to make a connection. And the person's name was Rav Simcha Wasserman, alav shalom, a blessed memory. It could be Rabbi Levine, who's from Los Angeles. Maybe he might have known, or his family might have known, Rabbi Simcha Wasserman, who for a while was, for many decades, was in Los Angeles. And Rabbi Simcha Wasserman was the son of one of the greatest rabbis of the Jewish people before World War II, and that was Rav Elchanan Wasserman. Rav Elchanan Wasserman was murdered in the Holocaust, along with many students from his yeshiva. Rav Elchanan Wasserman was in the United States raising money when the Germans invaded Poland, and he was told, and then Lithuania, and he was told he shouldn't go back. He was safe in America, he could start his yeshiva there, but he wanted to go back to his students, and if he was caught, and he was eventually murdered. And I felt very connected to him because I read a lot of his writings, his ethical writings, and he has writings, commentaries on the Talmud. And Rav Simcha was his son. And Rav Simcha was, at the time, it was the last year of his life. He was around 92 years old at the time. And I went to him for one Shabbos at the beginning of that year, my third year in yeshiva in Israel. And I ended up going for every Shabbos of that year. I went to him, Shabbos lunch, except for one. And that's a story too. And every Shabbos, he used to have a lot of yeshiva students over. But most of them only came for one Shabbos, but I came for almost all of them. And he used to take notes, he used to bring friends. I made a connection with him and his Rebbitzin. And they're very, very amazing people. They had no children. And his Rebbitzin was also the daughter of a great rabbi from pre-war Europe. Her name was Fega. She was very emotional, and she was around his age also. She was probably around 91 or so at the time. And Rav Simcha was also emotional, but he was also more cerebral. Now, the Rebbitzin was very smart also, but again, it was just, you can understand, a little more emotional. And they used to have students sometimes from the Mir Yeshiva, and also students from Or Sameach. And Or Sameach was a beginner yeshiva in Jerusalem, in the neighborhood of Malo Dafna. And these students, these students who came from Or Sameach, about 5 every week, oftentimes they were not themselves Torah observant yet, but they were studying in Or Sameach, and they were growing, and they got to meet this great rabbi. So one week, they sent, this is around the middle of my time there, of my year there, so on Shabbos lunch, they sent 5 students from France, came over with their French accents, and they were in Or Sameach, and they're telling their stories to the rabbis and Rav Simcha, and it came out, it's very funny, that they were sent by Or Sameach, but they weren't actually Or Sameach students. In fact, they were visiting from France, they were in Israel for the summer, they were spending time in Tel Aviv, very secular, from some little city far from the major Jewish centers of France. And they had a friend, I think was in Or Sameach for a couple of weeks, and he said they wanted to be in Jerusalem for the weekend, and he said, I'll set you up and in Or Sameach, and you'll have a place to sleep, and you'll get a few free meals. And so they were only in Or Sameach for like a couple of days. They were going back, I think, on that Sunday they were flying back to France. And therefore, they really had no Jewish connection, and they weren't, going to have a Jewish connection because it wasn't like there was some kind of long-term students at Or Sameach. And Rebbitzin Wasserman got very excited. She got very worried. She's like, because this is it. This is their only chance. This is like the only Shabbos meal they ever went to in their life. They slept over maybe Friday night. They went out somewhere. They didn't go to Shabbos meal Friday night. They're in Or Sameach after sleeping over one more night. But this is it. This is the one chance they have to be exposed to Judaism. And she didn't want to let them go. She was like ready to barricade the door. She was very, she was very excited. And Rav Wasserman was more calm about it. And she was talking to them and just trying to think, how could you make some connection to these boys? You can't let them go back. What's going to happen to them? And Rav Wasserman was very unusual. He was a very alert person, very brilliant to the end. So he looked like he was falling asleep, and I think he did fall asleep. He fell asleep at the table. And there were a lot of other students at the table, a lot of talking going on. It looked like he was sleeping. And Rabbi Wasserman is speaking to these boys. What could she do for what could you do to make this connection? These French young Jewish boys, sweet Jewish boys, and she asked one of them, and she says, like, trying to make some talk with them. She's like, well, what do you want to do for a living? So one of them said, I want to be a chef. So to understand how funny what happened was, you really have to understand that Rabbi Wasserman and Reb Simcha Wasserman spoke with very thick accents. Their native language was Yiddish, and they maybe spoke, Polish or Russian, and they spoke English well, but it was, accented, it was a foreign accent. And she said to this boy, the boy said, I want to be a chef. So just then, Reb Simcha Wasserman is snoring, he jumps up out of his seat, and he points at the boy, and he says, if you want to be a chef, then you should know what's cooking! And he started to tell him about the importance of Judaism. It was very, I guess you didn't think it was very funny. It was funnier when I was there. I almost fell out of my seat. And he was, and he told them, but he's trying to think. He realizes that unlike his wife, he can't convince them to stay in Jerusalem. They have a plane to get back. So he told them something. He said, I'll tell you what. He says, this is what you have to do. Because his wife's like, well, what you have to do is you have to take a couple of years off and cancel all your plans and stay in yeshiva for 2 or 3 years, and that'll be okay. But Simcha says, this is what you have to do. He says, there's a book. And I have the book over here in Hebrew, and the book is called Orchas Tzadikim. So this book, Orchas Tzadikim, it means the ways of the righteous. It's written a little over 400 years ago, I believe, anonymously. We don't know who the author was. And it's the ways of righteousness. It quotes from the Talmud and different ethical teachings of how a person can improve their character and be a more giving person, a more sensitive person, a more thinking person, a more responsible person. And it's long chapters of all these different topics. And he said to them, he says, you should get this book. They have it in English. I don't know if they had it in French. So he said, you should get the book in English, and you should read it for 10 minutes a day. Read it for 10 minutes a day. And if you read it for 10 minutes a day for a few months, you'll begin to understand that there's something more to life. There's something deeper. There's something more a person can achieve. And then you'll be opened up to exploring Judaism further. So that's what he told them. Now I myself, because of this, later I bought this book. I think it was out of print in English at the time. I bought it in English just so I should have. And before I came here to speak, I was looking all over my house for my English copy. I could not find it. I must have lent it out to somebody, maybe telling them this story, or without telling them the story, for this reason, giving this advice. Now, whoever I lent it out to, I'm not sure if it affected the person or not. I assume I left it out. But it could be Rav Simcha said, he said they should buy it themselves. They should get it themselves. So maybe it's not enough to lend it out. The person has to make the effort to buy it themselves. And then they'll study it for 10 minutes a day. It'll make a pressure on them. But I did, before I ran out, I did look up on the internet. It's on, it's a Feldheim book. I have pictures of what the book looks like. I was going to bring it to you for show and tell. But this is what it is. And this was his advice to them. And his advice, and again, the idea is, that Rav Simcha this is one of his many ideas, was if a person thinks deeply about the world, but not just enough to think deeply here and there, but for 10 minutes a day, if a person would take a Jewish book and that they can understand and read it and study it, so it would open them up to the importance of these ideas, and from there a person could grow further. So that was my one story with Rav Simcha Wasserman. I have many other interesting stories, but I wanted to share that with you at least. And I hope, as I'm saying it, I'm thinking, years and years ago I learned this sefer, I think most of it myself. I haven't opened it up in a while, besides a few minutes ago before I started speaking. Maybe I should learn it for 10 minutes a day. Maybe it could help me, get better connected, and share his ideas with you also. And again, I forgot before I began to speak. I was so much thinking about the story to thank. I should have done it first, but to thank very much Rabbi Shneur Levine and Rabbi Baruch Levine and Duvi Merenstein for founding and running the program, and Rebbetzin Bernstein for running the program, for asking me to speak, and for all of you for coming here every week, and occasionally for listening to me also.